everybody, and welcome to Sparing Partners. And today we have a brand new topic for Sparing Partners because we have not, I don't think I ever talked to anybody yet about satellites. And today we're going to talk about is specifically about satellites to mobile devices. And clearly there is an excellent set of services. So whenever you don't have connectivity, you're going to satellite to get connected. But as all the cool things, they cost money, and you need to recoup the money you spent in investing it. And so we're going to talk today about what is the monetization opportunity for this type of services. And I have with me Rafael Junquera, who is at Telesemana, and he will tell us more about it. But Rafa is a good guy, and I've been working with him in a lot of projects, and it's always interesting chatting with him. So, Rafa, why don't you tell us who you are and how you got into satellites?
Yeah, sure. Well, thank you, Monica, for inviting me to your podcast or to discuss in your space here. It's an honor for me to be with you, and also it's strange because usually you are the one coming to Telesemana to provide your insights on different topics. So for me, it's kind of new, but very happy to be here, and you think that I can provide some value to your audience. So thank you so much for thinking of me. So, well, not really in satellites. I mean, I started in telecom in 1999 as a young journalist, and since then I fell in love with the telecom industry. I know the telecom industry now is not what it used to be when I started. When I started, we were journalists. We were traveled to different places, paid by all the companies. I went to the World Cup in Korea and Japan, paid by Qualcomm, and I was taken to Las Vegas several times for different conferences. And I remember they would give us mobile phones and things like that as presents in 2000, 2001. And then the crisis hit in 2001, 2002. And then the sector has not been the same since then. It's been struggling overall to generate more value, despite the fact that we have been investing in newer technologies and so on. Still, I'm in love with the sector. I mean, I love the people that I met, people like you and other people. I had the honor of meeting people around the world all over the place, and not just Latin America, which is the focus of my work. But due to the fact that I participate in congresses like Mobile World Congress and CTIA when it was done in the US and so on, I had the pleasure of meeting people from all over the world. And I usually have the belief that telecom executives, engineers, and so on are just magicians. I mean, what we see in terms of telecommunication networks, these guys are just doing something that it's crazy. I mean, just the fact that you and I, being kilometers, thousands of kilometers away from each other, that we're able to see each other and discuss in real time whatever we want for as long as we want, with pretty much high definition video. I can almost touch you. I mean, it's just crazy. And this is happening all over the world at the same time. It means that the infrastructure behind and the technology behind is just nuts. So, sometimes we forget. It's a shame because we forget the novelty of all this innovation within the telecommunications industry because we are so much caught up with the monetization aspect and these things, which is kind of, there's not a good balance about it. But at the end of the day, if you like technology, the telecom industry is just nuts. I think it's just crazy what we've been able to accomplish in 20 years. Even with mobile phones, being able to have a video call with somebody while you are moving around, it's just crazy. So that being said, I fell in love with
may I say?
Yeah.
May I interrupt you there for a second?
Sure.
I'm very glad you say that because these days is so much in fashion to just complain about everything about cellular, mobile, wireless, mobile technology. I mean, actually even technology. And it's so easy to forget because whenever you do, whatever you do in life, you're much more likely to notice when something doesn't work. Like I'm having problems with connections and whatever, but we just think about that. We forget that 99% of the time things actually work.
Exactly.
And so it's really important. And I am completely with you. So I'm glad you bring it up, even though, as you say, they don't pay for our trips anymore.
Exactly.
That means that we have to travel less. Anyway, so
yes.
keep going. So
No, and that's something that just to provide a background on who am I. So I've been monitoring the telecommunications industry for Latin America mainly, but also worldwide, because one of the things that we wanted to do when we launched Telesemana was to bring what was happening outside Latin America to Latin America, because Latin America is behind, and we are aware that we are behind. But the fact that we are behind gives us an edge, because we can learn before we do stuff from other countries, see the lessons, see where they fail, avoid certain obstacles that they have to face because they had to learn. Our learning curve is totally different because we don't start from scratch. We usually inherited technologies that have been already used in the US, in Europe, or in Asia. And that means we have a certain little advantage in terms of deployment, in terms of using it, and so on. Despite the fact that we have very low ARPUs and the operators are also being magicians in terms of handling their own situations, because we have markets like Argentina, we're putting or getting stuff inside or getting money outside out to the providers. It's difficult. So yeah. So overall, I think the sector is great, and that's where I come from. So yeah.
Yeah, so, but again, let me interrupt you again because I'm going to be a little bit disagreeing with you, because it is true that in some things that Latin America is behind, but because there is so much pressure on our pool, and because sometimes things are different, there is a lot to learn from Latin America too. So,
Sure.
for instance, for APIs, Brazil is ahead of
Yeah.
anybody else as far as I could see, and actually that was driven exactly by from sort of a fact that there is a maybe more of a problem with the fraud, but there is much more reliance on, for instance, US digital, I mean, paying by phone, it's much more, uh, much less, the adoption is much lower than in a lot of other countries, and certainly in Brazil. So we all can learn from each other.
True,
Doesn't
true.
matter
That's
where
true.
you are.
No, and even if, for example, prepay is a clear example. Like
Yeah, same
prepay
thing.
was
Mhm.
much more developed in Latin America than in the US and mature
Yeah,
countries. And many of the innovation came because in Latin America, if you didn't have prepay, you didn't have customers because they didn't have bank
yeah,
accounts, they didn't have credit cards. So you have to do prepay regard. I mean, if you wanted to have a business in telecom, you had to do prepay. So, and prepay has a set of issues in terms of real time and understanding the usage of the user when it starts a call and removing the amount and so on, and recharging it quickly so they can use it and spend it and recharge it again. So yes,
yeah,
there's been a lot of innovation that I would call survival mode. Like if you want to survive with this new high tech, because actually mobile phones are a high tech technology. If you bring
mhm,
high tech technology to countries with a lower per capita income, you need to be very creative to make sure those technologies can actually reach the
yeah.
majority of the population. So yeah. I'm not saying that there is no innovation at all in Latin America or learning curves or things that you can learn from Latin America, but we launched 5G much later. We launched 4G
Yeah.
later, 3G. So these overall big technologies and big capex investments come later on. And when you talk to operators, usually they already know certain aspects of the technology because we've seen already what happened in Japan, what happened in Europe, what happened in, not in terms of prepaid, but in terms of spectrum usage and energy usage and where to put the cells. And, we have some learnings that these guys had to do while they were implementing the technology. I mean, it's not a huge advantage, but it's something that you can take advantage of. I mean, if you pay attention to other countries, you can bring those lessons to Latin America. So the operators in Latin America understand better the technology, and once they reach the capacity to invest in that technology, they already know the hurdles of that technology. So that's mainly
Absolutely.
the point I was trying to make. But yeah, I'm
Okay.
trust me that the engineers in Latin America, I always tell them that there is so much knowledge in the guys that work at the operators in Latin America. I mean, they are at par with the rest of the world. They are really well prepared. And sometimes I usually tell them it's a shame that you don't have the resources to participate in 3GPP or Etsy or these organizations, because you guys have a lot of things that you could add in terms of value because of your knowledge and the way you see the telco industry from the perspective that you were saying. We are in a different position. So yeah. No. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, and I guess that you bring up, I think, a very important point is that either the vendors or the operators with more money, they tend to be overrepresented because, well, they have the money to send people to 3GPP meetings. And as a result, you might end up with standards that are more geared towards that kind of markets where those
Totally.
operators operate, which are the ones that are more ahead. And
Exactly.
instead, we should maybe we should take more into account the situation of the biggest part of the world that is not up there, but still exists. And
Yeah,
it's an increasingly big, well, actually, I don't know if it's increasing or not, but it's a big part of the population.
yeah, I think if we are going into a softwareization mode, meaning that the balance between hardware and software is going to be level more towards software because hardware is going to become more a commodity. If that happens in the telco industry, which sometimes I doubt it, but it feels that maybe in 10 years or I don't know how long, but I think with software, you open up the door of innovation within Latin America that can be exported outside.
Yeah.
So software reduces the barrier of entry and it allows more companies to engage. You're saying the APIs and things, well, that's software. So that means you can do stuff. You can invest and it's not that heavy in terms of the amount of money you need and the cycle of innovation you need like hardware. So yeah, I think as more software becomes critical for telecom networks, we might see some innovation in Latin America. And once we see more innovation in Latin America, then the standard bodies and everyone probably will adopt, or Latin America will be more integrated within those discussions. But I think it will take time because Latin America is, as you were saying, doesn't have the resources. Usually when I speak with operators, I say, why don't you have anyone at 3GPP? And we don't have the resources. We cannot send anyone. I mean, not just for the trip. It's the fact that you are sending somebody that's not going to be working. So it's not just the trip.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
the
Yeah. You just
dedication
have
that you
a
need to have.
person. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And that person makes a lot of, I mean, proportionally speaking, it makes a lot of money in that operator in that country. So, it's an investment. It's not just the trip and the hotel and the food and it's the hours this person is not going to be available. And you don't have a huge staff like they might have at AT&T or T-Mobile. Like they have probably, some positions even with 2, 3, 4, 5 people, it's duplicated. So
Yeah.
one can go to these meetings and that's fine. In Latin America, that's not the case. Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's also true that there are often, more countries, smaller operators. So even if you have a dominant position in that market, you're still relatively smaller in terms of resources.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
anyway, okay. So now it's actually very interesting. That could be a topic of a podcast.
Yeah. Exactly.
Maybe
Yeah.
we should have one on Latin America because it's a really
True.
cool environment. But satellites,
Yeah.
what about them?
Well, we've been tracking satellites for a while. As I said, because we like technology, and obviously we are caught up every time something new comes in. We actually go and look at it very closely, and then we try to tie it up with the business model. And we have sensed at Telesemana that there is so much talk about device to device, and we are seeing so many announcements and trials and so on because of the LEO constellations that are being launched that we feel we wanted to send a cautionary word to the satellite providers in a way that if your business model for device to device is just connectivity, good luck, basically. Good luck. Because we are trying to figure out how to make connectivity less important in the business model of the operators because we've seen what's going to happen or what happens when your main business model is connectivity. We don't see any difference between connectivity on Earth based on satellites. And then we touched upon 5 points by which we think that the satellite operators need to get away from the damn pipe phenomenon, which is the fact that you just list out of connectivity, you connect point A with point B. Everything that's in the middle is the digital world, which has much more value and more your prices keep going down. The value of the digital world goes up. You are not participating. You're just an enabler of the connectivity. And that's what the operators are trying to get away from with the APIs, with the monetization schemes, that the B2B business, the becoming a platform instead of just a connectivity provider. And we thought that even though there is a lot of hype and everybody's talking about the positive of D2D, we thought, hold on, this is not the whole picture. I mean, we understand that D2D is great. Having connectivity everywhere is great. People are going to be paying for that extra connectivity, obviously. this is going to be a mass market. But if connectivity is your business model, you have to know what it means in terms of what has happened to those that have lived out of connectivity on Earth. And then we elaborated like 5 points with arguments and counter arguments to provide why we think the satellite industry need to look at the D2D space with caution, in terms of, that's fine, you're going to be offering connectivity, but start paying attention at other things that might bring value to your connectivity. Otherwise, you're going to become a commodity, like has happened to the operators on Earth. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
Well,
that was the
I
question.
think that, yeah. Mhm. So, but you could, I mean, I would argue that, well, so I argue for the connectivity business is that if you're an operator, that's your business. So, yeah, you can get into another business in the same way that, the two of us can start doing something else as a side, but that's not our business. So, at some point you have to accept the limitations, because you can just charge so much. But with satellite, if I go, say, hiking and I have no coverage and I fall on the ground, I'll be willing to pay anything to be able to talk to someone. My kind of gut feeling here is that, yeah, I would be able to pay, say, $10 for a 1-minute call to emergency, but it's just going to be whenever I fall, and which is not
Exactly.
that often. So it's not that I'm not willing. It's different, I guess, in the sense that people might be willing to pay, but it's not something they're going to use a lot if it's expensive. And if it's very cheap, then you get into the usual problem that you say, just a commodity, and people are not going to be willing to pay all that much. So what do you think is the problem in terms of operators not being able to get enough revenues just from connectivity?
Yeah, we didn't concentrate on the fact that how many people is going to be connecting. So we assumed, okay, you're going to have a lot of people connecting all over the world. So you're going to have a constellation that covers the whole world. And so Monica's going to be hiking. I'm going to be in the middle of the sea with my kayak. So adding everyone around the world, okay, you're going to have enough people paying for your service. That's fine. So you're going to have enough scale in terms of the massive market. But the thing that happened to the operators on Earth is that they were able to reach mass market. So that's not the issue. They're reaching mass market. The issue was having 3 operators or 4 created competition. Prices went down. Investments were really high. That's the same situation satellites are going to face. If we see at least 3 constellations covering the whole world, then you have 3 players competing for that connectivity from you and from me. So I'll choose Starlink and you will choose, I don't know, Amazon. So at the end of the day, you are starting competing for prices. Okay, you're reaching mass market. We're giving you that. We don't even argue about that. So we don't say, listen, there aren't so many people doing hiking. There aren't so many people doing kayaking, or that's fine. We don't enter into that argument. That's fine. We're going to have mass market. We give you that. That's fine. That's okay. But now that you have mass market, what are the fundamentals of the business? And the fundamentals is, we're going to see more than 3 constellations with LEO satellites. At least 3, yes. There are like 6 or 7 projects to fill the sky, only from mainly US and European companies. I don't count the Chinese or other players that might come into play to provide you that connectivity. So the more players are on space launching satellites and constellations, more competition for pricing. That means pricing is going to erode really fast if you want to catch my attention. And you have to deal with the fact that maybe in the US they're willing to pay a lot, but in Latin America they're going to be willing to pay less. So you are reaching worldwide connectivity and you are facing all the issues that operators face, with the difference that AT&T faces the same issues an operator faces everywhere, but with a high ARPU. But Telecom Argentina is facing the same issues AT&T, but with low ARPU. Now you're going to be facing both worlds at the same time, because your constellation is reaching the whole world. So you're not going to be able to charge in Argentina the same as you're charging to an American. So that's going to give you also a very ARPU, probably a very or low ARPU, or you're not going to be reaching emerging markets. But given that, some people are saying, but listen, it's not that easy to launch a constellation. It's not that easy. Well, it's not that easy to launch either a mobile network. You have to buy spectrum, which is really expensive. There are many companies that can do that, but at least there are 3 per country that can do it. And we're seeing that at least there are going to be 3 constellations, at least minimum 3, if not 4 or 5, that are going to be competing. So just from the get-go, you're going to have competition. and you're gonna have eroding prices. So yes, you're launching connectivity. Yes, it is premium. Yes, providing that connectivity is really expensive. You're gonna charge for that, but you're gonna have to compete, and then your prices will have to go down. Your margins will tighten, and then you will enter the same scenario that the operators are facing on Earth. So that was the main first point that we...
And if anything, it could be even worse because satellites, well, okay, mobile networks is not like an overnight thing, but satellites even more. It's even worse in the sense that you already have,
they last
it might be,
5-6 years.
yeah. Well, the thing is that my suspicion here is that each operator, you're planning your network and you look at the overall market and you kind of look at competition second. So you say, well, I'm going to get X% of the market, but then if there are more operators, you might get much less. Or if the other operators are more aggressive than you for whatever reason, then your revenue expectations will go down, which is what happened with mobile networks too, or other technologies. So basically this might be a case where we might be in a situation where too much competition leads to no profitability, and basically you become not viable, right?
Well, there's going to be a first mover advantage. There's going to be one company that's going to be offering the services with more constellations because it has more satellites and has been able to launch more satellites. But eventually somebody's going to catch up. I mean, we're seeing too many movement on the satellite space at this point, and you're going to have competition. So as soon as you have competition, somebody's going to get aggressive because otherwise, or you gain market share, or you're going to have satellites that are going to be dead because you're not going to have customers and you're not going to be able to sustain your operations. So you're going to have to get aggressive to gain market share. But, well, if you get aggressive, your competition is going to get aggressive too.
But aggressive means lowering prices. So basically, you have the risk of exactly what happened in cellular, where everybody start to compete so much, and then the prices go down. And when the prices go down, you cannot bring them up again.
Exactly.
It's just like it doesn't work.
Yeah.
People
so
just
we're seeing people launching 5G and providing 5G for the same price as 4G. So some try to pay a premium, charge a premium. That lasted few months, and then you have to say, okay, it's part of the bundle. So you connect 5G, 4G, or 3G, it's part of the bundle. So
and they tried it with 4G and it didn't work for 4G. They didn't
exactly.
learn. They just repeated and it didn't work again. So okay, so I'm with you on that.
Okay.
Cool. So if I'm the satellite operator, what can I do? Because okay, now the satellites are up there. They have the investment, and it's not like you can say, well, let's not compete with each other too much. It's not going to happen.
Yeah. Well, they're gonna try to do
okay, is there something else you can do?
Well, that's a funny thing. The problem I have with this cautionary word is that I am in the telecom industry and I haven't been able to tell the operators exactly what to do to change that reality on Earth. So I'm not able to provide a solution. I think if I had a solution for that scenario, I probably would be like the richest man in the world because everybody would just hire me to,
I know.
So I'm unable to. The only thing
you do it yourself,
Exactly. The only thing I can do is I look at the market and I provide what I see, right? So our job, at least how I perceive my job, is I look at the market, I see what's happening, and I try to provide an insight while the other people are doing their stuff. Listen, guys, this is what's happening on the market. Now, what's the solution? I don't even know. What I know is that you are not going in the right direction. That's what we can see. So we need to find another direction. So you guys need to figure out something else to what else you can do. And the operators on Earth are trying the APIs, are trying the B2B market, increasing their share of, because the operators are getting like 20% of their revenue from the B2B market. They want to increase that. They want to reach the small and business market with different offerings and solutions and so on. Not very successfully, to be honest, in the telecommunications industry, in the mobile industry. But they're going on that route. So they thought, okay, we need to increase our revenue. We need to go for the B2B market. So probably one easy suggestion would be, all right, don't go just for the consumer market. Try to see if those device-to-device communications, you can also reach the enterprise markets with vessels, with the government. So try to get contracts from companies that might need connectivity all the time. and that they are now losing it in certain areas because there is no network to connect to. So that could be a thing. But again, that's something that's also happening in the telecommunications industry. So if you have 3 constellations targeting the B2B market, again, prices would be aggressive.
Same thing.
Same thing is going to happen. Also, not all the companies are going to need real-time communications all the time. They might need every hour, or not even that. Maybe every 24 hours if it's a vessel on in the middle of the sea. And then when I reach port, then I connect to the network on the port, and it's better, it's cheaper, so I can wait. But still, so it's a market that might be interesting. Satellites today have a lot of revenue coming from governments, for instance, and that's a huge market. So yeah, they could live out of that. But again, the problem is that the geo, we're seeing already that the constellations are, we're seeing a merger phenomenon where SES bought Intelsat. So we're seeing that the number of constellations are being reduced because already they feel in other constellations and with other services, they are already feeling the connectivity pressure of being too many. So, what's going to happen with D2D? The same thing. If the value is just connectivity, you're going to be competing for pricing for that connectivity if we have more than 3 constellations. And the government might be an option, and the B2B might be an option. But again, in competition, you're going to have aggressiveness in terms of the pricing, and it's going to be difficult to capture, because at the same time, what the operators are facing with connectivity with the B2B market is that the value they have is in the platform they use. And usually the provider of the platform, they buy the connectivity for the company. The company don't see the value in the connectivity. They see the value in the platform. So usually the key strategic partner for the company is the provider of the platform, not the provider of the connectivity. Because the connectivity is, today I'm giving you connectivity via fiber. Today we're using T-Mobile. Tomorrow we're using AT&T. But you don't care. I'm providing you the platform, and it works, right? So I'll take care of the connectivity. So for the company, the platform and the strategic partner is the one providing the platform. That's going to happen also for the satellite. Yeah. You're going to have a platform, and somebody's going to tell you, I will provide you connectivity. We might choose Starlink, or we might choose Kuiper from, you're going to have connectivity. So again, satellite would be there, but hidden as the value proposition would be perceived coming from the platform provider, right?
No, absolutely, and the platform owners will just negotiate. Basically, it's a wholesale deal. So clearly, it's in the direction of commodity. I mean, just they just pay for bare bone connectivity.
Exactly.
And then they'll manage it. So, which I guess is the same issue that you have actually with cellular networks, because you can make more money if you get into different services, but that's not what operators have been very successful at. They've been trying forever. And so there is no reason to really believe that satellite operators would be any different, because, if you don't have cellular connectivity, you'll be willing to pay, either you as an individual or as a company, to pay for satellite, but you just need connectivity to do whatever you have to do in life or in business. So it's hard to see what is it they can possibly do. So when you talk to satellite operators, sorry, go ahead.
No, the evidence right now with the GEO and MEO satellite constellations is that we're seeing consolidation. And consolidation happens when I am unable to compete, so we just consolidate, we remove competition, so we can stabilize pricing, and then we can survive for a while. Or we can survive, not for a while, we can survive. So I think that evidence is already there. We're seeing the consolidation happening. That means already the existing satellite providers are seeing also the pressure of just living out of connectivity. There's other issues like losing the TV market. Obviously, these satellites were offering TV services, and they are losing that. Many of the operators that were offering TV via satellite, they're losing that market at a very fast pace. So that's a business that's going to disappear very soon.
That's another that's another issue.
Yeah, and they need to compensate for that, which they are trying, obviously, with the new constellations and with data and so on. But we're seeing on space, we're seeing already consolidation. So with many plans to launch LEO constellations that would do the device-to-device connectivity, given the fact that connectivity would be a commodity if they don't have anything else, they will be first extreme competition that won't be sustainable. Then will be consolidation. Some constellations will not survive. We will see one or two, and maybe with one or two, there is a business case that might be solid enough to be up and running. But we're seeing now so much hype around LEO constellations and device to device that I think we are not understanding what's going to happen with some of these constellations.
I think that's sort of going back, but in kind of a different way to what we were saying at the beginning, is that the technology is so cool. Because if you remember satellite in the early days, you get your head hot. Now, it's not just your phone that gets hot, your head gets hot. You need to have a special thing. So when you think about it, it's magic. You can use your phone and it works. So clearly it's so fast. It's just it's kind of easy to fall for the hype, because it's like we're finally able to do this. You know, and it doesn't cost you a fortune. So it's just, you know, you can see all the use cases. It's great. The question is that you need to really be very kind of realistic in a brutal way. I mean, you know, you need to really look at reality as it is in terms of how much usage, how much people are willing to pay. And also the cellular infrastructure, the cellular coverage, if anything expands, it doesn't contract. So it's a market that is not growing in terms of size. Well, okay, you're going to have more handsets, sure, but you know,
you have to go for the IoT. So you have to have, if you want to live out of connectivity, that's why IoT is something that has been hyped for many years as well. Because okay, so if my business model is based on connectivity, and the more things that I connect, the more money I make, and there are more humans that can handle it, because you cannot go with two phones in your hand, one in each ear. Then I need to find the IoT market. That's why the IoT market was something that we need to hold on to, like, this is where we're going to grow. Because if the dishwasher, if the refrigerator, the TV, and in factories, everything is connected, that connectivity is on my network, that's fine. Then, you know, I'm going to increase revenue. But that also is, you know, with Wi-Fi and other technologies, that's also...
It's just like that's the problem, because it's not the devices are out there, but you just don't use the cellular network for it.
Exactly.
And I guess that here is somewhat different in the sense that even if you have, I mean, you know, I've heard a lot of use cases where you can track all sorts of things with satellites, you know, out in the wilderness, say. But those sensors generate very little traffic. So you might have a huge number of devices, but each device is not going to generate a lot of money. Because, you know, if you're a park and you want to monitor whatever happens in the park, you don't have that much money. So there is a value, but so at some point there is a question of what is the value to the people using these IoT sensors. The value is not that high per device, so they're not willing to pay that much. So I mean, one side is the competition, but the other side is that how much value is this thing given to me? I'm not going to pay more than the value, regardless.
Exactly. That's sometimes in the past I was explaining that you can differentiate connectivity, and I always put an extreme example. If I have a nuclear plant that gets heated and it's going to explode, creating, you know, a massive drama wherever that's what happens. But I have a connectivity provider that provides me with an option of shutting down the plant with the touch of a button in my cell phone. I'm at home and I see an alert. Your nuclear plant is going to explode in 5 seconds. But if you press this button, you can stop it. And you have the latency. And I'm willing to pay a lot of money. And the traffic is just 10 or 11. It's just an order. It's just 10 on, off. That's it. So the data, it's minimal. So I don't need to run a lot of data in that action. But the value of it to me is huge, right? So to increase the temperature in my thermostat at home, the value is 0. Listen, if you charge me a lot, I'm not gonna. I'll reach home and I'll wait 5 minutes or 10 until my house gets heated. But if it's really inexpensive, I'll do it from my phone 5 minutes before I reach home, so my home is already heated. But when it comes to the nuclear plant example, that's not something that, to me, that's very important. So I'm willing to pay, even though I'm not using it, just for the fact that I'm going to be able to use it in case of an emergency, I'm willing to pay. So there is this value that the operators need to find in the use cases, but the value of the person is like insurance, right? So
Yes.
if you have a small car that's really old, you're willing to pay a little money for your insurance. But if you have a Ferrari and they charge you a lot for your insurance, you are willing to pay that because it's your Ferrari. If you break it, it's really expensive to fix. So even though you might not be using your insurance ever, you're paying for the insurance. So in a way, I think the operators need to find a way of how can I make my connectivity in a way that provides that sort of value that is not related to the traffic. It's not related to how much bits I move back and forth, but how important those bits are. What's the problem with this scenario? Again, that you have competition. So if you think, listen, you can stop your power plan and I'm going to charge you $1,000 a month just to have that capability. And then T-Mobile comes in and says, listen, it's so expensive to provide that SLA and that bit that's going to go and shut your plan that I'm willing to do it for $500 a month.
Yes.
Yeah,
And then it's,
yes, the price is going down. I mean, as long as there is competition, because the cost of that thing is not very expensive. It's just moving any other bit around. Obviously, you have the SLA that you're gonna open up the pipe just for that thing to move fast because if it explodes the plant, everybody dies, so you also die. So yeah, I think the value should be found somewhere else. But again, that's not easy. Otherwise, operators would have done it already.
yeah,
no,
and you're absolutely right. The way I see it is like not all bits are created equal in a sense that, but there's just so much that you can charge in addition. So I am sure that you can charge the power plant, the nuclear plant, more than in an individual, but to a point. Well, because
exactly.
obviously you have the license, so it's a different service.
Yeah.
But to a point, I mean, you're not going to be able, as I say, you're not going to be able to charge on a real value of the thing. The issue, but anyway, but it's actually really tricky because you have to
Very
balance
tricky.
it. But
Very
it's
tricky,
not
yeah.
trivial.
But that's what I think here where the insurance companies or we could look at the insurance, because insurance it's something very funny if you think about it. You and I were paying for insurance, but you are willing to pay more than I'm willing to pay, and it depends on what we are. If you have a Ferrari and I have a Volkswagen or whatever I have. So
Right.
yeah, you're willing to pay more for your insurance than myself. Obviously, I wouldn't pay for a Ferrari type of insurance for a Volkswagen. So how do these guys were able to handle pricing for a perceived value? Because it's not a value in and of itself; it's a perceived value. So the operators would have to understand the perceived value of things, of each connectivity, of each sensor, of each company, of each industry, of each vertical, to understand, okay, if I'm connecting a machine at a hospital that is connecting to a person that had just heart surgery, that's really important. How do I make the hospital understand that connection, it's much more expensive than the connection to send a WhatsApp to your friend that you are going late, you are arriving late for dinner? So, because maybe the bits that we are sending is the same. I mean, maybe the WhatsApp when you're sending a picture is even higher, because this is just an order. Do this, do that, right? It's not. I don't need to send a lot of data. It's just do this, do that. It's very simple. Stop, start, launch an electric shock. I don't know, whatever. So yeah, how do you reach that level of understanding of the market, like the insurance companies have done, so you can actually understand the perceived value of each connectivity, so you can charge accordingly, and then you can compensate, because you will charge almost nothing for my thermostat at home, but you will really charge a lot for the hospital or for the nuclear plant but obviously maybe for the nuclear plant you will charge much more because the lives of a full city is at stake, and for the device it's just one life. So 5 million lines against one life, which one is more expensive? Well, so you have to. I mean, I'm just thinking aloud. I mean, I'm not. I don't even know what I'm saying, but that would be my take on things.
Yeah, but I think that this is a really important and sort of underestimated issue, and I think it's the same thing with 5G, as a matter of fact, in the other direction, where it is a perceived value that you can charge, not the real value necessarily. And operators have been overestimated the perceived value.
Totally.
And therefore they go and try because, well, this is worth a lot. And users say, well, it isn't.
No.
I mean,
I'll
not
go
that
to,
they don't
I'll get
see the
Wi-Fi.
need.
I'll wait for the coffee shop and I'll get Wi-Fi. That's
Yeah,
it.
well, yeah, exactly. And the thing is that, well, yeah, there's just you can't. There's no argument there. In a way, if people are not convinced that that's the value, that's not the value.
Exactly. Exactly.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
That's the
Anyway,
difficulty. And that could happen with
yeah,
satellite as well.
yeah,
So
the
the
same thing.
perceived
Yeah,
value, exactly, this is because you're
it's the
living out of
perceived value.
connectivity.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So the perceived value and the value might have a disconnection, which I'm not saying that's necessarily an issue. The same way that for insurance companies, not an issue that you are going
Yeah.
to pay little for this and a lot for this in terms of what you are insuring, right? So
Oh,
if
but
you're
because
able
of
to,
there, you're insuring a value. So if I have the Ferrari and you have the Volkswagen, whatever, my insurance is gonna be more than yours. So the insurance has to pay me more. So it's kind of
exactly,
like, well, it's kind of easy to compute because you
true,
say, well, the insurance have to pay more if my car gets destroyed.
right? If that person on the
Yeah,
on the hospital bed doesn't get the signal right, he's dying.
yeah, yeah.
So okay, what's the perceived value?
But it's hard because it's hard to do the perceived value because you don't have the insurance premium.
Yeah, it's.
I
I
mean,
mean, no,
sorry,
no.
the insurance total,
I
right?
think it's.
So that
Yeah,
is
yeah,
inherently more complicated.
yeah. Yeah, exactly. I think if we were with, if every human being had a tag with a price, like saying my value is
Yeah,
1 million, then okay, then that machine with your heart, it's
yeah,
gonna be
yeah.
very
Then you
expensive
just know,
because
yeah,
yeah. But my value is $1,000 because I'm whatever.
whatever. Yeah, like
Yeah,
yeah,
somebody that does is not worth much. Everybody's just worth the same. But let's assume, for the sake of
yeah, yeah.
argument,
Let's assume it's not.
that
Yeah,
we had a price tag that everybody could see. Yeah, then obviously the connectivity for saving your life would be much more cheaper for $1,000 person than for a
yeah.
1 million. Yeah, yeah, I understand your point. Yeah, you're right.
Okay,
That's more easy to
okay.
compute
Now on
because you
this
know the
note of the
yeah,
yes,
you know the value of. Then the thing here would
whatever.
yeah, yeah, and that happens with cybersecurity, for instance. It's so
Mhm.
important,
Yeah,
but it's so difficult to compute the value unless you suffer a leak and then you understand the amount of money. It's like it could be something like it's really inexpensive because the attack might have been really small, or it could be huge. So okay, so how much do I spend in cybersecurity to imagine the worst case scenario where I have to invest millions and millions and millions, which might not make it sustainable, or I assume a conservative scenario and just pray that I never get a massive attack. And as you were saying, that's difficult.
yeah.
Where do you put the money?
It's really
How much
hard.
money?
Yeah. Well, the thing is that in there you pay for something and nothing happens to you. Is it because
Exactly.
you paid or because just nothing happened?
Yeah.
So you never know. These are things that are really hard to compute because it's not just
Mm.
generating an Excel spreadsheet to compute it because you don't know the likelihood of things happening, the cost of things happening if they do happen. So it's hard. And then how you can price it. Even if you knew that, it would be hard to price it anyway
Yeah. But
because
I
you
think, I
don't.
mean, I think maybe with artificial intelligence, the operators might be able to figure out a way to find the proper perceived value in certain industries so they can actually allocate pricing accordingly, even though if they are
Yeah,
under competition. So
that
maybe
might be.
that could
Yeah, you're
be.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can optimize because you can actually see what happened and so then you can like use historical data in a massive way to say, okay, this is
Yeah.
what we
Yeah.
spent. Anyway, on this note, on what's the value of people and what's the value of AI,
Yeah, with the price tag here, everyone.
we just went we covered a lot of ground, I would say. So Rafa, thank you so much for sharing with us. As always, it's very interesting, inspiring, and fun to talk to you.
Yeah, no, talking to you likewise. I really love talking to you. You know that every time I kind of invite you to interviews and to events in our portal. So I'm really happy that this time I was invited to
Yeah.
your show. So thank you so much. It's an honor.
Yeah, and I have to say, I always enjoy doing it too because you have a very lively audience as well.
That's true.
So it's
That's
very
true.
nice because you talk to them, and so I just feel like I'm more like people are actually listening to me. They're not just dozing or
Yeah,
thinking of something.
maybe
So
it's the nature of the culture in Latin America that we are very social. Because it's true that our chat in our events is quite
yeah.
yeah, quite active, and we have
Mhm.
certain people that are really active that even at some points you think, wow, this guy it's even too much. But yeah, I think
Shut
that's
up.
probably
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Stop asking questions. We need to shut up shut off the event.
Yeah.
But no, I'm very happy that we have that sort of engagement in our virtual events, because it's great. It's great connecting people from Mexico with people in Argentina, and it's just great. Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, thank you so much,
Yeah.
Monica.
No,
It's
in
been a
that
pleasure being
respect,
here.
you're a model. You're a model for me. I told you
Oh,
many
no.
times. Okay, and thank you very much. So, and thank you all in the audience for listening to us, and keep listening to Spare Partners. Thanks a lot.